Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 13 of Divergent Dialogues. Today, we are going to continue our conversation on reframing expectations, but today we're going to be focusing in on expectations around organisation and self-care.
Yes. Did you want to address the elephant again?
Well, yeah, I probably should because it's still there. It's like my eye. It's like the third person in the podcast now. We should probably name it.
What should we name it?
I don't know, maybe Nelly, like Nelly the elephant.
Nelly the elephant. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
For those who are listening, Tina's got a sore eye at the moment.
Oh yes, it's swollen and I look similar to Quasimodo, but it has deflated quite a bit. It's been going on for days now, and yeah, it's quite distracting.
You know, everyone's going to be like rushing to our YouTube to watch the video just to see your eye now. You know that, right?
Yeah, I should post some photos because yesterday it was way worse, and it swells over the course of the day and it starts to droop over my vision. I know when it's time to stop because yeah, like I've just got
Yeah.
this dangly thing in front of my eye. It's super bad.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. We'll segue. We might segue. Otherwise, it might get a bit
Yeah.
graphic.
Well, I've done enough oversharing. Too much information.
uh, so I thought I might start with this point. So according to Sears and Hogg, many autistic women find it difficult to align with conventional feminine ideals, primarily due to differences in social communication and interaction. But I also thought it kind of applies to organization as well, because I think as a woman, especially as a mother and a partner or a wife, there's this expectation around, you're going to be super organized and all over it, and you're going to kind of organize the kids and be all over everything. And I don't know, like, Tina, would you be happy to talk about that kind of pressure?
Yeah, definitely. It is absolutely a pressure that I have experienced and still experience as mum to three children. There is this expectation that I manage my own self and all of their stuff as well. And it feels like an absolute failure on my part when one of my kids come to me and say, like, oh, I've got that birthday party this weekend, mum, and I've scheduled it. It's on the calendar. It's in my phone. It's everywhere it needs to be, but I've completely forgotten. I don't have a present. Like it's just a big old mess now, and it feels really, really horrible. But there is that expectation that as a mum that yeah, I'm all over it. Very
And
rarely.
the thing is, if you're an autistic ADHDer, just because you're a mother doesn't mean you magically aren't an autistic ADHDer anymore.
Yep. Definitely. My older sister, also ADHD, also a mum, and like she's just absolutely notorious for just getting it all wrong, making mistakes, and but she's really taken ownership of it, and it's nothing for her to take her kids to the movies, but show up on the wrong day, and now it's just like, oh, okay, well, we must not be meant to see that movie. Let's go and watch this. And, just really trying to, yeah, take ownership of it because it's, as an ADHD, it's organization's difficult. It's one of the things.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is when being organized is something that's challenging. And I think, like, for some mothers, maybe they have the bandwidth to do that for their kids, but not for themselves.
Yep.
So has that been something that you've experienced?
Yeah, and it can change. It's, like if I'm trying to be organized myself, like for example, when I was working in a full-time role for an organization, trying to protect my professional what's it called, reputation,
Yeah.
so wanting to present as organized and on top of things, then it meant I dropped the ball in that organization space as mum, and I lost count of how many times the ladies in the office at my kids' school would ring me and say, oh, hey Teena, Grace, Emmett, Miley, one of them, they don't have any lunch today. Did you mean to put in a lunch order? And, feeling completely humiliated and terrible. I'm like, no, I just forgot. Can you please sort them out with some lunch and I will transfer some money over to wherever it needs to go? Like, they were amazing. Like,
Yeah.
they were really kind about it and never judged me. But that's where I would drop the ball. But if I'm all over it as a mum, being organized in that space and, getting it all right, then I'm absolutely dropping the ball in my own space and forgetting all sorts of things.
Yeah. And I guess something that I found when I was reading through the research is that the expectation to multitask and switch between tasks quickly can be overwhelming for autistic individuals. This can lead to feelings of failure or underperformance, perpetuating the cycle of stress and anxiety. So, when you're trying to manage your own self, work, kids, partner, and your brain's having to switch between all these different things. And then if you're an ADHDer and it's hard for you to kind of hold on to those things in your working memory,
Yeah.
things can kind of go under the radar or slip through.
Yeah, like being at work and focusing in on what you're supposed to be doing at work, and then getting a phone call that your kid's sick, so you then got to switch into mum mode and go and be kind and nurturing and supportive and look after your sick kid. But then you've also, once you've hung up the phone, you've got to be really mindful of not getting sort of stuck back into your work and forgetting to go and get your sick kid. So, like that, for a lot of parents, that's just a fairly easy thing to do. It's like, oh, my kid's sick, school's called, I better go get them. But that can be really challenging, switching between, like hats, so to speak, and stop doing what you're doing, go and do this other thing.
Yeah, like essentially, because my private practice days are Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. And I told my family that if there's anything like major, like a big drama or something that's upsetting or emotional, please don't contact me during those hours, because it will be quite hard for me to be in work mode, shift to that and shift back.
Mm.
If it's like an absolute emergency, like obviously, things happen, but if it's kind of something that is going to be emotional, but can be like, can wait till that night or the next day or whatever, because it's really like, like it's so weird though, because it's just like when I'm at work, obviously I'm working therapeutically with people, and emotions and stuff come up, but I don't know, it's just like I'm in a different space than when it's a personal thing. It's just I think I just process those emotions a little bit differently in those spaces.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's something that I found to be helpful. But you don't, like, as a mum, you can't just be to your kids, oh hey, you can only contact me between these hours.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. They definitely wouldn't listen even if I tried.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
think, in terms of like understanding, like reframing organization, um, just being comfortable with organizing your life how you need it to be. Like there is this expectation in society around flexibility, so being able to, be doing a task and switch to have a conversation and then get back to that task or whatever, so having that cognitive flexibility. But that is not something that is necessarily easy for autistic and ADHD people. So like we talk about often, deciding where you want to put your energy, if that cognitive flexibility is something that you really want for yourself for whatever reason, then put your energy into, like regulating strategies so you can increase that cognitive flexibility if that's what you want to do. But if that's not on your agenda, then organize your life, your day, your tasks around minimizing the need for that cognitive flexibility. So, like I like to, my face-to-face client days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. My Mondays and Fridays are for, other work-related tasks where I can really block, do blocks of work where it's just all the one thing, and then another block where it's all the one thing. So I'm really minimizing that need for like brain switching.
Yeah, I guess for myself, I am a highly organized person, and I would say that probably anyone that knows anything about me, that's probably one of the things that would be on their list that they would say about me. Like,
I would suggest that you have a folder in your computer somewhere that is full of Excel spreadsheets that organize every facet of your life, which I am super envious of.
Have you been hacking into my computer? Because that's exactly what it's like. It's so funny though, like, one of my partner's friends, when she comes over, she goes, "Your house, it's like a show home." Yeah, because I don't know, it's just for me, having my space organized, it really helps me to regulate, and having my life organized, I don't like, it's not enjoyable. It's not, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's enjoyable because it's regulating. It's not like a hobby, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if I do this, I know it's like a present for future me. If I put in this effort now, future me is going to be happier, more regulated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the flip side of that is when you're really organized and things don't go to plan, I think I find it quite hard to regulate, but depends what it is. In I think work-wise, there's more of, I guess in my mind, I know that there's more probability that things may change. But at home, in my domain, when, it's a lot harder for me to regulate when things don't go to plan in that space. But in saying that, I have learned that, especially with the ADHD, it's a bit of a balance. So some of my days are super organized and scheduled, like my private practice days. But then I also have some days where, like, part of it might be scheduled, and then I kind of have free time to do, creative things, or, fun things for my business or whatever as well. So I think, like, for a lot of people like autistic and or ADHDers that go to someone for support around like executive functioning challenges, and they kind of roll their eyes when they go, "Oh, here's a wall calendar." And I totally get that. And I don't have wall calendars, because if I had a wall calendar, I would not see it. It'd melt into the wall. For me, it's all digital. And I've just got a routine where I check it, and I have like, reminders and stuff. Anyway, I digress. But
Well,
I guess
I think it's actually a really important point, because you're right. A real bugbear for a lot of ADHDers is being told to get a diary or a life planner. It's like, oh my gosh, like, as if I haven't thought of that. But societal expectations are that you be consistent and, like you keep at it. So you've got one planner that you have to absolutely put everything into. But ADHD is also about novelty seeking. So, like I talk to my clients about having different ways to organize, but just, being able to know where you're at. So for me, I do have in my electronic notebook, it's like a handwritten, old school diary that I sometimes use. I have my electronic organization systems as well. And one of my biggest self-care strategies is sitting down with all of my systems and orientating myself to where I'm at. when I'm overwhelmed and getting a bit dysregulated and feeling like under pressure, my partner will now say to me, like, maybe you need to sit down and make some lists. Maybe you need to sit down and catch up with your diary and just orientate yourself to like what you've got on. And it is really soothing, and
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do.
Yes, I'm definitely a list person as well. I have many lists. And yeah, I think it's like, I'm just trying to think, because like for me, a lot of it's digital, but for our meals, we have, so on my fridge, I've got a little whiteboard, which is like Monday to Sunday, and we'll put what we're having for dinner every night, because in our household, two ADHDers, we'd be really tired. We'd get to the end of the day and we'd both be like, what do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? And like, I would say, like, if there was any conflict, it was around that time and that choice.
Yeah.
And I said, no, okay, once a week, we're going to sit down and decide like what we're going to eat. So like, thank you, past me, because future me is like, oh, cool, we're here. I know what we're doing.
Yeah.
All good. So that I found that was helpful, because I guess it has a particular purpose and it's right on the fridge, and I guess I have a routine with it. Whereas for me, like if I had a wall calendar with stuff written all over it, I would find that very dysregulating and very overwhelming. Whereas with on digital, like, I've got little lists and I've got little folders and things like that. So I can just see the stuff that I need to see, and then I can hide the other things that I don't need to. Or it's kind of staggered where I get reminders at a certain frequency or whatever it is.
Yeah. And just, getting comfortable with the different options, because for somebody else, they might absolutely need the wall calendar.
Yeah.
They might need a gigantic wall calendar. And that's okay if that's the system that works for you. Like it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing, and you don't have to justify why you do what you do. And it's also okay to do things differently. It's okay to start the year out with a wall calendar, and then halfway through the year move to a like a diary based thing, and then do some electronic scheduling, and then go back to the wall calendar. As long as it's working for you, that's okay.
Yeah. And when I'm working with my clients, I always say, pick something that's simple and easy and has the most chance that you're going to continue to use it. So the more simple it is, I think the more chance that people are going to continue to engage with it. And it's just about prioritizing what is really important and kind of getting that done, or even targeting things that, for the most part, you might remember to do a lot of things, but it might just be a few specific things that kind of fall through the cracks. So maybe it's just about putting in some reminders around that. I use, what do I use? It's like the suite of Google stuff. So like Google Notes and calendar and everything. I love it because it all syncs together and it all, it just all works. And the thing I love about it is that you can have different profiles. So I've separated my work stuff from my personal stuff. And because I used to have, what did I use? Like I was like Microsoft inbox or something. And I thought, oh, that's great, because I can put all of my emails go into one inbox. And because that's convenient, right? Yeah, except I kept getting distracted and dysregulated, because I'd have a personal thing come up, then the work thing, and then a uni thing and whatever. And I actually found separating those to be a lot better, because I could just focus on work or personal or uni, and not get distracted by other things. Because if I have a little thing pop up, I'm like, oh, what's that? And I can't just leave it. I have to look at it. So just understanding yourself and how your brain works and trying to set things up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an Apple person, and but yet I do have the Google thing for work, and Apple is all my personal stuff. So like keeping keeping those two domains separated is really, really helpful. And yeah, you know, like I talk to people that I work with about the idea, you know, like as an ADHDer, we thrive in structure and routine, but yet, you know, we really don't like that at the same time. It can feel a bit restricting. And I really advocate for the like unscheduled weekend. You know, like I do it myself, and I really encourage my clients to do this as well, where you pick however many you need. That's up for you to decide. But for me, it's about 4 weekends a year, 5, maybe 6, where I just block it out in my calendar, and I'm not allowed to schedule anything for that weekend. It's not about not doing anything. It's not about not going anywhere or anything like that. It's just about having no plans. So when I get to that weekend, there's nothing on. I can wake up on the Saturday morning and decide to spend the whole day in the bath if I want to. Or I can wake up on the Saturday morning and call a friend and see what they're doing, or, you know, go down to the beach, whatever I decide to do. But there's no routine, there's no schedule, there's no expectations. It's just a completely unscheduled weekend, and that can feel so refreshing.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to skip through that whole weekend knowing that you're not going to be late for anything, knowing that you haven't forgotten anything, because it's intentional, that there is nothing there for you to have to remember or prioritize or keep up with. Because you know, as an ADHDer, there's a lot of difficulties with executive function stuff. So that is working memory, prioritizing, organizing, like time management, all of that stuff. And when you spend majority of your life looking at your clock and, you know, responding to reminders and staying on track and pulling yourself in because you've been doing this thing for too long or whatever, having a few weekends throughout your year where none of that exists. It's just whatever. If you want to spend 5 hours, you know, researching what is that substance inside your eyeball, and, you know, can it be replaced, go for it. You are not going to, you know, it's not going to interrupt anything.
Yeah, I think you bring up a few really good points. I think the first thing to consider is that as a ADHD in particular, a lot of these things that you have to do, like a lot of these strategies for organizing, you're doing these things manually, which other people may be able to do automatically. So apparently, for some other people, this is so far out of the realm of my experience that it's unbelievable. Apparently, some people can just schedule things and they'll just remember it. Yeah, I know. I was like, what? So yes, apparently for people that don't have ADHD, apparently they can just remember things. So that's awesome for them. But for us, we're essentially having to manually do something to help to orientate our brain. And something that I found is really important is pacing. And so, for example, on the weekends, my partner and I, we would have these weekends where we we're going here, there, and everywhere. And then we'd have to go back to work and we'd be exhausted, like we didn't have a break. So now, like on the weekend, we might have like one event or do one thing, and then the rest is kind of free time. And if we feel like doing something, great. If not, then no. And it's similar with my work. Like I have my days where like it's booked out, and then other days I kind of pace things out, or I might have a bit of space and wiggle room, and making sure that you have wiggle room for things as well. Because I think sometimes as ADHDers, we just feel like think we're going to like zoom from thing to thing. But we need to kind of put that like padding on either side of things to make sure that, you know, we can drink and eat and go to the toilet and look after ourselves, and not just kind of be running around like an Energizer bunny.
Yeah, definitely. definitely scheduling in things like eating and yeah, just even taking a break, because you might, when you write out your schedule, you might be in that really energetic phase where you can literally do 100 hours worth of work and be sharp the whole time, but then when it comes time to executing that week's schedule, you've dropped into your low energy phase where it's like, yeah, maybe you could get through 20 hours in the week and, just survive as well. So, yeah, factoring in that wiggle room.
Yeah. That's a really good segue, actually. So, when it comes to self care, autistic people may require specific types of activities that cater to their unique sensory and emotional needs. So, we want to talk about self care as well and how self care may look different for autistic folks and ADHDers.
Yeah, self-care is such an interesting one because it is a real industry at like these days where, you could look at any billboard and you might see this beautiful beach and, someone laying on the beach getting a tan, reading a book, or, like an ad for a day spa, and it's all about, appealing to people's need for self-care because we've become a lot more accepting of the idea that self-care is important. So let's sell self-care as a
Yeah.
product.
It has a
And
price tag attached, apparently.
yeah, absolutely. So, we are kind of told that self-care is going to the beach. It is going and getting a massage or being at a day spa. Self-care is, going shopping and buying something for yourself, perhaps. But self-care for autistic ADHDers can look very, very different. Um, it like for me, self-care, the thing that energizes me is a quiet house, hyper focusing on my research, having all of my sort of snacks and temperature controlled drinks at my, arm's reach sort of thing with zero interruptions. Like that absolutely fills my bucket. If I can have a day of that, come the end of the day, I will have the energy to go out. And if you know me, I don't like going out at night. So, but a lot of people would suggest that that is me being a workaholic, or isolating myself, or any of those things that aren't, they're not nice.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not looking after myself.
Yeah. For me, self-care is having a extended periods of time where I'm 100% in control of my sensory input and 100% in control of my social interactions.
Yes.
So, like for example, I have my own office. I don't work with anyone else. So I have during my breaks, I have 100% control of both my sensory input and my socialization. And I really need that. Whereas, like when I used to work, um, for someone else, I'd kind of feel like this pressure that, oh, I had to kind of sit in the lunchroom with other people and talk to them. And I couldn't really recharge my battery. And it's even the same, like I have working from home days. And there may be times where like my partner has an extra day off because it's a public holiday or something like that. And I love my partner, I really do. But I notice those weeks when I don't have those extended periods of time where I'm at home, not communicating with anyone, doing my thing, no sensory input. Like I do feel that meltdown kind of feeling where I know that I'm gonna, it's not gonna be long till like a tip over the edge.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just self care; it's a need. Like the more like obviously there's a balance, but if
Yeah.
I don't get that solid time away from people and sensory input, it's really bad for my mental health and my physical health.
Yeah, I've absolutely come to learn the same about myself. I spoke about that time alone, being able to hyper focus on my research as a self-care, like recreational activity type thing, but much the same. If I don't have that balance throughout my week where I'm having enough time where I'm alone in my own company, my own energy, I do become quite dysregulated. And it's not about being around the right people, because I could spend that week around the people that energize me the most, that I love the most. It's just about that energy exchange that happens when you're in the same space as someone.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even about that parallel play. It's not about to do my thing while someone else does their thing. It's about I need to be completely alone.
Yeah. You're completely right. Is that, like, for example, like if we were stuck in a house together for a week, and obviously we really enjoy each other's company, we have great chats, but if someone was like, hey Caitlin, you have to stay in a room with Teena for a week, and you can't talk, I would still find that dysregulating, just you being there with it, even with the, like, there's no expectation that I have to talk to you, just you being there. And I guess with someone else there is a level of, like, we do co-regulate with others. And also, especially ADHDers love vocal stems and will probably even make noises or clicking or this or that, or but I mean, even someone who's not ADHD, like, it's just like you just sense that someone's there, and that, like, you just need to sense, like, have your own space and feel like no one's there. I don't know how to explain it, but
I feel like it's an energetic thing. Like it's just picking up on other people's energy. And as an ADHDer, we do tend to have that sensitivity. And I think that a part of that sensitivity for me is picking up on other people's energy. So even if, like you said, I could absolutely spend hours on end chatting with you and all the rest of it, but spending a week in that space, I would be able to, I guess, read your energy without conversation, and that's still a like a stimulus, an input, and something for me to be processing. And it's just when there is no energy around me, then I'm not. There's no input, so it's just
and I think for me, it's helpful for me to be alone when I'm processing really challenging emotions or trying to sift through things. It's almost like I can't have any sensory input from anything else, so I can just be in my own space to be able to process those things. So I'll kind of spend that introspective time away, and then I might go and have a conversation, or I might go and do whatever. But if I don't have that time, I'm just going to have like this backlog of stuff that I haven't been able to process properly, because I haven't been able to kind of go into that space, because I'm just constantly being distracted by all this stuff around me or people.
Yeah. And in the idea of reframing expectations around self-care, when someone who loves you very much, means well, all that sort of stuff, identifies that there's a need that hey, you haven't been taking great care of yourself, you need to maybe prioritize self-care at the moment, they're usually making suggestions like, why don't you call your friends and they're up to, or why don't you get out and enjoy the sun, or something like that. But with the idea of reframing self-care, getting to know what absolutely rejuvenates you, and what energizes you, that's your self-care. And that could very well be going out with friends and like reaching out for that social connection. It might be getting out in the sun and doing something active, but it could also be being alone, and intentionally, like I like to refer to it as hanging out with myself. I really enjoy just exploring my ideas and my thoughts, and letting my brain go down all the different rabbit holes that it wants to go down. And like that can be self-care as well.
Yeah. And I think like engaging in your interests is really important. And I think again, depending on what your interests are, people may not see that as self-care. So I think for us, like we really enjoy research and academics, and a lot of our special interest is tied in with our work. So some people might look at us and go, "Oh my gosh, you're like workaholics." But for me, a lot of this stuff, it's like my hobby.
Yeah.
And you know, other people might have different hobbies that are a bit like unique and unusual, and people might not understand that for them that's self-care, and for or they may be spending a lot of time doing a particular hobby, and they're just like, oh well, you're just goofing off, like you don't want to kind of do your work or do whatever. And it's like, well no, like I'm actually doing this because it helps me to regulate, and it's a really important part of my self-care. So kind of like shifting that, and helping people to understand that like this isn't just a hobby for me, this is something that helps me to regulate, and replenish my energy. And yeah, I think a lot of it of self-care is around like meeting your sensory needs as well. Like that's probably something that I think we're getting more understanding around it, but particularly for autistic folks is that you always need to consider your sensory needs, and that can be breaks, or it can be implementing some things in your week where you have things that are soothing or alerting for you. So yeah, it's really important to consider that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for ADHD is understanding the like being overstimulated, and what is your, where are you at with needing, like with being overstimulated versus being understimulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of self-care, I can feel my stomach grumbling and my mouth getting dry. So yeah, we might
Great
wrap it up there. I
segue.
might have to go do some well, I don't know if that's self-care. I think it's just like basic need stuff. But yeah, we might wrap it up there if that's cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.